This is Michael David Angel, and you're watching My Human and Me.
Let's jump right into this explainer and unpack something absolutely fascinating. Have you noticed how Apple might actually be playing a completely different game in the global AI arms race? I mean, right now it feels like every single tech giant on the planet is just shouting from the rooftops, right? You've got constant mega announcements from OpenAI, Google, Microsoft. They're all rushing to show off these massive new generative models. The noise is literally deafening. But Apple? They've been remarkably, almost aggressively quiet. Well, today we're going to look at why that silence absolutely isn't a sign of defeat. Actually, scratch that. It's a highly calculated strategy to completely redefine how we interact with intelligence altogether. So here's a massive paradox for you. Why put a hardware engineer in charge of an AI crisis? On September 1, 2026, John Ternus officially steps up as Apple's new CEO, taking over for Tim Cook. This is huge. It marks one of the biggest philosophical shifts inside the company in decades. Think about it. As the entire tech world races at breakneck speed towards software-based cloud AI, why hand the reins of the most valuable tech company on Earth to a guy known primarily for building laptops and iPads? It kind of seems backwards, doesn't it? To really figure that out, we've got to look at the competition. The industry consensus right now is basically screaming one thing: build bigger AI. Companies like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and Anthropic are locked in this fierce, immensely expensive battle. They're all competing to build the smartest, most massive AI models possible, all living up in the cloud. We're talking an all-out arms race for trillion-parameter systems, longer context windows, and autonomous agents. And all of that requires essentially infinite computing power and massive server farms just to function. And, well, because Apple isn't playing that exact same game, we get this prevailing public narrative, which is Apple is falling behind because they lack a loud frontier model or some public chatbot that breaks the internet and dominates the news cycle for 48 straight hours. People just assume they're fundamentally losing the war. Wall Street gets worried, and consumers have really started to associate cutting-edge AI exclusively with those standalone digital assistants. So naturally, Apple's approach looks extremely cautious, or maybe even severely delayed. But honestly, that assumption completely misunderstands Apple's core DNA. There's an old saying, Apple historically does not win by being first to a category. Apple wins by absorbing complexity. Think back for a second. They didn't invent the smartphone. They didn't invent the smartwatch, the tablet, or the MP3 player. No way. They entered all of those categories late. But how did they dominate? By aggressively simplifying the user experience. They hid the difficult, clunky, technical parts until everyone else's competing products suddenly felt incredibly frustrating to use. Which brings us to Section 1, the Apple Silicon Blueprint and the big hardware shift. To truly understand what John Ternus plans to do with AI right now, we really have to look back at his defining moment. Back in 2020, Ternus led the incredibly risky transition to Apple Silicon. And just look at the sheer scale of this pivot. Step 1, abandon external Intel chips entirely. Step 2, build completely custom internal silicon from scratch. Step 3, perfectly integrate that new hardware with the macOS operating system. And finally, Step 4, completely reshape the laptop industry. At the time, the wider tech industry thought abandoning Intel was borderline insane. Experts were predicting massive software compatibility nightmares, angry developers, and years of instability. But instead, Apple flawlessly controlled the entire stack. The crucial point to understand here is that vertical integration wins. By controlling the hardware, the software, and the silicon all at the exact same time, MacBooks suddenly saw these absurd leaps in performance and battery life. I mean, they literally moved faster and ran cooler than the rest of the industry could even attempt to keep up with. This transition proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that vertical integration isn't just a fun strategy for Apple, it is absolutely their ultimate superpower. Moving on to Section 2, the paradigm shift, cloud versus device AI. Now, what's truly fascinating is how that exact same Apple Silicon blueprint is being applied to the current AI war. We are looking at a fundamental battle of cloud dependency versus device dependency. While the rest of the industry is laser-focused on building cloud dependency, where your prompts, questions, and data have to travel miles and miles away to massive energy-hungry data centers just to generate an answer, Apple is actively building device dependency. They aren't trying to own the cloud. They are trying to own the device that is already sitting right there in your hand. So how exactly do they do that? Well, they're unlocking device dependency by heavily optimizing 4 distinct pillars. First, there's on-device inference, meaning the AI thinks and processes right there on your phone without ever waiting on a server. Second, low-power AI processing, so this constant intelligence doesn't completely drain your battery by lunchtime. Third, private local models, ensuring your most personal data never actually leaves your physical device. And fourth, deep OS integration, where the AI actually has deep-level permission to talk to and control your apps. But making AI run efficiently directly on your device, Apple unlocks total privacy and instant response times that those cloud competitors simply cannot match. You don't need a massive data center if your phone's custom silicon is built specifically from the atomic level up for AI workloads. This hardware-first approach turns AI into what we call invisible infrastructure. This is intelligence that quietly exists everywhere inside an operating system, rather than acting as a separate conscious destination or chatbot. Think about the profound difference there for a second. It means intelligence lives silently inside your keyboard, predicting your next word. It's inside your notifications, prioritizing what actually matters. It's inside your photos, finding that specific memory. And it's inside Siri. And you never even have to consciously open a chatbot app. It's not a destination you visit to get work done. It's a foundational layer you constantly and passively experience. And that perfectly sets up Section 3, the ecosystem moat and Apple's massive distribution advantage. If AI is not a destination, but rather a seamless background layer, the entire competitive battlefield shifts. It goes from who has the absolute smartest AI model to who controls the most seamless ecosystem to deploy it in. Just let this number sink in for a moment. 2.5 billion. Apple already has roughly 2.5 billion active devices worldwide. That is a truly absurd world-dominating distribution advantage. I mean, most AI startups right now are burning millions of dollars in venture capital just trying to acquire users, essentially begging them to download their new apps and form new habits. But Apple? They don't have to do any of that. They already own the most valuable real estate on Earth, the glowing rectangle right in your pocket. And it's not just the physical hardware itself either. Apple controls every single layer of the stack simultaneously. They own the hardware, the operating systems, the silicon architecture, the developer environment, and the app distribution layer, the whole shebang. Very few companies in human history have controlled this many layers of the consumer ecosystem all at once. If the smartest AI models eventually become commoditized, meaning, everyone basically has access to the exact same level of intelligence, then the deep, flawless integration of those models into your daily life becomes the ultimate competitive moat. Which leads us to the massive strategic reversal that pretty much everyone is missing. What if the goal isn't to build the best chatbot, but to eliminate it entirely? The companies dominating AI today are training users to consciously open an app, type out a prompt, and explicitly interact with an artificial intelligence. But Apple, they might just believe that's a temporary, clunky phase of early technology. They are preparing for a future where you don't even realize you're using AI, simply because it's baked fundamentally into the very fabric of your device. Because at the end of the day, Apple's entire historical philosophy boils down to 3 simple words. This just works. Just as you aren't supposed to think about the intricate processor inside an iPhone, John Ternus is positioning Apple's AI to just work, completely seamlessly and entirely quietly. When your phone perfectly categorizes your photos, or manages your battery life based on your commute, or rewrites a messy email with the perfect tone, you aren't supposed to be marveling at the parameters of a neural network. You're just supposed to be enjoying a product that works beautifully. Ultimately, the best technology disappears. The absolute most crucial point to take away from this explainer is this. If Apple successfully executes this hardware-first strategy and turns AI into an invisible layer across its 2.5 billion devices, 5 years from now, they won't look late to the party at all. They are going to look incredibly early. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. While the rest of the world is busy trying to build the loudest, smartest machine you can explicitly talk to, is it possible that the ultimate winner of the AI war will be the company that makes you forget artificial intelligence even exists? Keep thinking on that, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.